And welcome to Northern Kentucky Votes 2018. I'm Dick Murgatroyd, your host for our coverage of the results for the races here in Northern Kentucky. They're produced as a public service by the Telecommunications Board of Northern Kentucky. And thanks to the support of our TBNK member communities, we'll be bringing you the only televised, nonstop Kenton County election night coverage for the fastest, most thorough Kenton County results right here on the TBNK Government Channel 204 on Spectrum and 816 on Cincinnati Bell Optics. Now tonight we'll keep you up to date on how you voted in our local, state, and national races here in Kenton County with the fastest results anywhere from our exclusive live results feed from Kenton County Clerk Gabe Summey's office. And we'll also bring you the statewide totals here in the studio while we analyze the numbers and the races this evening. No one else brings you this kind of in-depth focus on Northern Kentucky elections. So stay with us right here on TBNK Government Channel for all the results this evening. Joining me in the TBNK studio this evening are Dan Humpert and Hannah Carver, who are going to be helping us take a look at some of the most contested races, and there are quite a few of them, by the way, and be analyzing the numbers as they start to come in. Good evening, Hannah, and good evening, Dan. I know we're going to be talking to you soon about some of the races, but nice to have you with us.
Good evening, Murr.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, folks, there are plenty of races to cover tonight. I think it's one of the largest ballots I can remember in a while in the whole Kenton County area, including elections for most of our city mayors, our councils, commissions, as well as state and national races, and several highly contested ones, by the way, that we'll be following this evening. Of course, we'll be keeping an eye on the race for the U.S. Representative in the 4th Congressional District in Kentucky, as well as important state races, including the 61st, the 63rd, the 64th, the 65th, and 69th districts, because this year most of those candidates do have opposition. And that's unusual. But I think it's just the nature of the year and all the things that have happened in Kentucky since the beginning of the year. And of course, we'll be covering all of our city races, including some highly contested races for Covington City Commission, as well as Mayor and Taylor Mill, Independence, Villa Hills, to highlight just a few. We'll also have the Kenton County Judge Executive and Commissioners on the ballot. However, none of those have any opposition, so they will be running unopposed this year. But we'll still have them, and you'll still see them on the ballot this evening. Now, Dan and Hannah, let's go ahead now, and we'll review the ballot for tonight, and then we'll come back and talk about some of the races as soon as we get them. The U.S. Representative in the 4th District, we have 3 candidates, Massey, Hall, and Moffitt, voting for 1. This is the statewide results that you'll be seeing when the numbers come up later this evening. In the 61st District, we have 2 candidates, Maddox and Link. In the 63rd District, St. Onge and Blair. In the 64th District, Mosier and Varney. And then in the 65th District, we have 3 candidates, Huizenga, Wheatley, and McDowell. 69th District, Koenig and Owens. Now these will be the county results, so you'll be seeing a repeat here right now when we talk about them. But this evening we'll be showing you both numbers, the state and the county. So we've gone through those already. Sanders, the Commonwealth Attorney, 16th Circuit, he's unopposed this year. Circuit Clerk, Middleton is unopposed. Property Valuation Administrator, Plummer is unopposed. County Judge Executive, Knuckleman is unopposed. County Attorney, Tapke, unopposed. County Clerk, Summey, is unopposed. The Sheriff, Korsenborn, is unopposed. The Jailer does have an opponent this year. Jailer is now Terry Carl. Extra Camp is the opponent this year in that race. County Commissioner for this 1st District, Sewell, is unopposed. County Commissioner in the 2nd District, Dowd, is unopposed. County Commissioner in the 3rd District, Nienaber Jr. is unopposed. Now for coroner, we have 2 candidates, Sudholz and Ishmael. County Surveyor, Shoemate is unopposed. Magistrate of the 1st District, Hoffman, is unopposed. Constable of the 1st District, Cope, is unopposed. Magistrate in the 2nd District, Blount, is unopposed. Constable in the 2nd District, Woodard, is unopposed. Magistrate in the 3rd District, Shoemate, is unopposed. Constable in the 3rd District, Moffett, is unopposed. 16th Circuit Judge, Family Court, that has been a pretty highly visible race this year in the 5th Division. Gentry and Schoberg are the two candidates. 16th District Judge in the 1st Division, Ruddle, is unopposed. 16th District Judge in the 2nd Division, Easterling, is unopposed. 16th District Judge in the 3rd Division, Grotehouse, is unopposed. The Soil Water Conservation District Supervisors, we are going to be voting for 3. Kleintrip, did I say that right? Kleintrip, Schneider, and Johnson. Powell and Micah are the candidates for those three positions. Member of the Board of Education in the 3rd District, Jen, is unopposed. Member of Education in the Board of Education in the 4th District, Crabtree and Harold are unopposed. Or not unopposed, they're running against one another, sorry about that. Member Board of Education in Beechwood School District, Willis, Hood, and Bishop. They vote for 3, and Sullivan and Berger are the other 2. So there's 5 candidates, 3 of those will be winners tonight. Member of the Board of Education in Covington, vote for 2. There are several running there, Avery, Sherwood, Flairledge, Brown, Cooper, Shackelford. Oh, I'm sorry, these are for Ellesmere, Erlanger-Ellesmere. Voting for 3 in that group, Brown, Cooper, Shackelford, Lucan. And in Ludlow, Hayden, McMillan Jr., and King voting for 2. Bromley Mayor, Denham is unopposed. The Bromley City Council, they'll vote for 6 this evening. Kinker, can I say that? Kinker? Wortman T., Kendall, Smith, Folks, Wortman D., Radford, and Hammond. Covington City Commissioners, Wells, Bowman, Downing, Williams, remember you're only voting for 4, Flesh, Smith, Blair, and Mims. Crestview Hills Mayor, Meyer, is unopposed. Crestview Hills City Council will be voting for 6. Out of those 6, we have Kramer, Luby, Dorsey, Summercamp Jr., and Russell, and I believe there's a write-in candidate in that for the 6th position this year. Edgewood Mayor Link is unopposed. Edgewood City Council, Volking, Thielen, Schultz, voting for 7. Roush, Barledge, Ward, Shriver, Messmer, Henson. Ellesmere Mayor, Lenhoff, and Ritter, vote for 1. Ellesmere City Council, vote for 6. Wickman, Grubbs, Tanner, Moore, Mitchell, Bowman, Barnett, Smith, Bradford, and I messed this one up. It's Auclair. Is that right? Auclair. I don't want to mess those up. That's Ellesmere City Council. Fort Mitchell Mayor, we have 2 candidates in this year's race, Hummeldorf and Heyman. Fort Mitchell City Council, you vote for 7. Berger, McVeigh, Deathridge, Steckel, Burns, Hicks, Knockhazel, Rosie, Oka, and Polgers. Fort Wright Mayor Hatter, unopposed. Fort Wright City Council, voting for 6. Wall, Witt, Feinauer, Wessels, Abelin, Horline. In Independence Mayor, it's Aloha and Reinersman running for mayor this year. Independence City Council, Asiri, Waite, Deaton, Lucas, Franson, Engelman, Brinker, and John Deaton, voting for 6. Kenton Vale Mayor, Penry is unopposed. Kenton Vale City Commissioners voting for 4, Briggs, Patrick, Burge, and Zunda. Lakeside Park Mayor, Jansing is unopposed. Lakeside Park City Council, Gastrite, Landwehr, Diskin, Stegman, Markgraf, Wolfer, Stewart, Waite. Ludlow Mayor, Wynn and Boone, running for that office. Ludlow City Council, Navarre, Whiteley, Wright, Ammon, Chapman Sr., Mullins Nancy, Massey, Geyser, Grider, Matthews, and then Bill Mullins. Park Hills Mayor, Zembrook, unopposed. Park Hills City Council, Matone, Reeser, Overjohn, Shields, Froelich, Elkins, Spohr, O'Hara, Tyson, Dieters. They'll be voting for 6 in that race. Ryland Heights Mayor Cole, unopposed. Ryland Heights City Commissioners voting for 4, Collins, Bowman, Stevenson, Ponder, Bell, and Fritsch running for mayor in Taylor Mill. Taylor Mill City Commissioners, Crime Board, Merritt, Martin, Kirkpatrick, Cooney, Reese, Braden, Murray, Peace. Villa Hills Mayor, we have a race this year at Callery and Jansen running for that position. Villa Hills City Council, vote for 6. Boehner, Wagaman, Zepp, Cahill, Ringo, Kilborn, Koenig, Wadsworth, Thompson, Bruns, Stover, Vaden, Phillips. I think the whole city's running. We have a constitutional amendment on the ballot, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that later on. So tonight it'll be a yes or no vote on that constitutional amendment, and we'll talk a little bit about that with Hannah soon. So that's the ballot for tonight. So now while we don't go, well, we're going to go ahead now and we'll profile a few of the races that we'll be following closely, starting with the Covington Commission race. And let me remind you that when we get numbers all throughout the evening from the clerk's office, we'll get right to those, so you'll see them right away. You'll see them first thing. And now we're going to look at the Covington race. Dan, that's one of the races you're going to be covering, so tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Merg. The Covington City Commission race this year has been an interesting race. We've had some very contentious candidates and contentious elections. This was not one of them. So this has been a good race. We have 8 candidates. We have 4 to be elected. We have 3 incumbents. We have 1 open seat. So from top on this slide here, we have Christy Blair on the left. We have Denny Bowman second from the left. Shannon Smith and Tim Downing, he's an incumbent. We have John Flesh on the bottom left. We have Michelle Williams, she's an incumbent. We have Bill Wells, an incumbent. And we have Brandon Mims. So this group ran in the primary, and in the primary the 3 incumbents did really well. And incumbents do really well when they're performing well. And it turns out that when I lived in Covington for 25 years, when I asked my friends in Covington about the issues in Covington, they said, Covington's doing well. We want to stay the course. We want to stay the course. We want to ride the wave. Things are good. And that shocked me because that's not always the way it's been.
I was going to say, Covington is not always one of those.
That's not always been that way.
No.
So they give credit to Mayor Joe Meyer quite a bit. And they give credit to these 3 incumbents, plus the 4th incumbent, Jordan Huizinga. Those 4 incumbents have done really well the last 2 years.
And Huizinga is now running for
state rep. So they give a lot of credit for the last 2 years to the commission and to the mayor. And they say there's peace and harmony at City Hall. And I said, you've got the wrong place. There's no peace and harmony in Covington.
Make a note of that in the history
book. They have peace and harmony in Covington. So I asked them, what have they delivered? What have these guys done? And they say, well, they've delivered jobs. They've brought jobs to Covington. They've brought businesses, entire businesses to Covington. They've done a lot of development. They've done commercial development. They've done industrial development, and they've done residential development, the big 3. I mean, who can't go along with that?
Yep.
And they've done a lot of innovation. So this has been a very innovative group. So the citizens of Covington are very pleased. And that showed in the primary results that the top 3 vote getters were the incumbents. The next 3 top vote getters were Denny Bowman, John Flesh, and Shannon Smith. So I would look at those 6 people, the 3 incumbents and the top 3 candidates in the primary for the open seat. I think there's going to be one open seat. I don't think they're going to displace any of the incumbents
Yeah,
because
probably
the citizens of Covington are very pleased with the Covington City
not.
Commission.
If you got them happy, keep them happy.
It's very unusual, believe me.
It is,
So
for
we give
sure.
credit to Mayor Meyer and we give credit to these
Yeah,
incumbents. They've done a good
absolutely.
job.
Absolutely. What other of the races are you looking at this evening?
We're looking at the judicial race. The family court judge is what they call it. It's actually the 16th Judicial Circuit, 5th Division. That's Dawn Gentry. She's the incumbent judge. She was appointed by our governor just in the last couple of years. And Terry King Schoberg is her opponent. Terry King Schoberg had a team of really hardworking poll people at the last election. That her campaign team was really top notch, and they really hit the campaign trail. And they actually, Terry King Schoberg and Don Gentry finished. They won the primary, but in the results, Terry King actually beat Don Gentry by roughly 477 votes. So Terry did very well in the primary. I think as a result of that, Judge Gentry has really upped her game. I've gotten phone calls. I've never gotten Facebook messages about a candidate. I've gotten Facebook messages. I've got texts from Facebook. I've gotten actual event. You know, the event is Don Gentry's running for judge. Vote for Judge Don Gentry. So.
Well, I think that's unusual, but this race really has drawn a lot of attention. It seems like there's been an awful lot of exposure and presence.
A lot of press.
press.
If any of these races have gotten press, this race has
really
gotten the
have,
press.
yeah,
Whereas the press has been almost non-existent in the other races.
Usually judges' races, you don't see too much. I mean, you know they're there, but you don't. But this one really.
So this, I would say, this is going to be a pretty evenly matched race. It'll be interesting to see which way it goes. Terry King Schoberg won the primary. She came, you know, they both won the primary, but she came in first in the primary. I think Dawn is going to really up her game here, and I think it'll be a close.
Should be a good race. Yeah,
race.
Yeah, very good. What else are you looking at?
The other one I've got tonight is the Taylor Mill mayor race. When we talked about contentious races, this is an incredibly contentious race. This is between Daniel Bell, who's the incumbent mayor on the left there, on my left, and Sarah Frisch, who is an incumbent city councilwoman. So she's on council running against the mayor. You can imagine that creates
should be interesting.
It creates a little dynamic that you might not want to have on your city council. This is called the commission, the Taylor Mill City Commission. They have 9 candidates running, and they have 3 incumbents, and they have one open seat in the commission. So there's going to be a lot of candidates there's been a lot of contentiousness, a lot of divisiveness in Taylor Mill. So it'll be interesting to see how this race turns out.
I think a lot of people are watching that race for sure.
When you talk about cities that have issues, you always talk about police and fire, how they manage police and fire and pay for police and fire. You talk about pension, you know, how they pay for that pension, and the road, water, sewers, and stormwater, the infrastructure. And Taylor Mill's got all those problems, and they have issues with all those problems, and they really don't have enough money to pay for all those problems. So it's been the citizens have gotten involved and have come to meetings, and it's been a very contentious time. I watched a couple of their meetings. I said, wow. So it'll be interesting to see how this turns out.
Money is always an issue, right?
Money is an issue.
Anytime there is not a lot of money, then that's always a little
big
factor.
Issue.
Well, those are 3 races we'll be watching, and we'll be talking about some of the other ones later on. But right now, I'm going to turn to Hannah, and we'll talk a little bit. You're covering 3 things, especially that we want to talk about this evening. So give us you're doing, I think, 65th District is the first thing?
Yes, which I think one of the most striking things about this race is that Representative Arnold Simpson, who is a Democrat, is retiring after 24 years, leaving the seat open. So these are both newcomers to the State House. Jordan Huizinga, we talked about a little bit with the Covington Commission. He served there. He's also the director of Children, Inc., so well known. It's interesting. He doesn't have the Republican ballot of issues that you would expect. a lot of what he's running on is wanting to create the best schools in the nation, jobs that you can raise a family on, and then fair taxes is his third big issue. So not quite what you get from a lot of the other Republican candidates here in Northern Kentucky.
Well, Arnold has big shoes to fill. He served 20-some years, I guess. And I had the good fortune to be in the House with Arnold. And Arnold was always kind of an even keel. He looked at issues, he focused on issues, and he was always pretty good and he could always give you some good advice as you were looking at issues. And he did a good job for Covington. As Dan said earlier, Covington really is doing well right now. So I think that there's not a lot of things you really got to shovel any dirt on, because people are pretty happy right now. So whoever gets it is going to walk into, I mean, like I said, some big shoes to fill, but I'm sure they'll do a good job.
And then Buddy Wheatley, he has a journalism and firefighter background, and has served as the Covington fire chief in the past. Stands with public school teachers is one of his main things.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing about this district is since the maps have been redistricted, this is the only one that lies within Kenton County.
Okay, they're trying to move me around here. Well, yeah, I think it was on the city commission, wasn't it?
Correct.
So he's had some government background. Now Wheatley has had
Fire chief.
fire chief, yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it should be interesting.
Yeah.
Should be interesting, and that's one of the few districts that really held together.
Yes.
If you look at the districts.
We're going to talk about
We're
that.
going
a
to
little
talk
bit
about
later.
those later on for sure.
The redistricting really chopped up Kenton County.
You're looking at the 69th district. This is interesting. Adam Koenig has held that position, and as I said, most of the state reps up until this year didn't have much opposition. In fact, almost hardly any opposition. This year, I think a lot of people, because of the school pension, the pensions, teacher pensions was a big factor, brought a lot of people out all over the state. But I think a lot of people jumped into races, and Coach Call has been around a long time, so tell us a little bit about that.
His background is education and healthcare, the two things that he's running on. He has a law background, has worked behind the scenes a lot, served on the Covington Independent Public Schools as a board member back in the 90s. So just interesting throwing him in the race, and fits in with that education wave that we talked a lot about in the primaries as well as now.
Yeah, which I think brought up, as I said, a lot of folks jumped in, I think, with that being one of the factors. And you look at that district, it's kind of a spread out district and covers, I mean, it goes into Boone County, does it not?
Yes.
Yeah, goes into Boone County also. So we'll be watching that closely this evening. What else are you looking at?
We are also looking at the 63rd district, which is Diane St. Onge and Josh Blair. Oh, that's all right. Well, we're also looking at that district, which that one is a very interesting shape, and we can talk more about that later.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But that one covers Kenton and Boone counties, and is much different than it's been in the past, so I think that'll probably affect results. Then the City of Villa Hills mayoral race is going to be interesting due to the sanctuary development. That's playing a big role. Butch Callery is the incumbent. Heather Jansen is challenging him and is supported by the Defend Villa Hills PAC, as well as, and talking about the city council, throwing that in there, there are 6 seats and 13 people running.
I was just
So
gonna
it
say,
is
half of the city, I think,
Half the
running.
city's running.
it is a packed race, and it plays right in. I think about 4 of those council members, or potential council members running, are also backed by that Defend Villa Hills PAC. Jansen says that it's not so much the development itself isn't why she's running, it's the way that it was handled, and that she feels that a lot of citizens didn't have their voices heard.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Villa Hills is kind of the Taylor Mill, the same situation.
Same,
They have
contentious.
a little contentious situation there in Villa Hills. So that one's one we'll watch very closely
In the
tonight.
Taylor Mill race, there was a development issue also, where you always think development is good, but you end up with a double-edged sword where there's a lot of people that are anti that
Yep.
development, and that's happening in
That
Taylor
fires
Mills
them up.
also. It fires them up.
Quick as anything else. Well, those are some of the things we'll be looking at this evening. We'll be talking about some of the other ones too that you, as we get into the evening. So, but looking forward to that for
Sounds
sure. It should be an interesting night here, as you can see, at the TBNK studios for the 2018 edition of Northern Kentucky Votes live election night results show. We have a whole lot planned for you this evening, and we'll be tracking the overall statewide results, as well as breaking out how you voted in Kenton County and our cities. So we want you to sit back, get comfortable, stay with us as we bring you all the numbers for all the races, national, state, and local, as they do come down the stretch, which we're looking forward to. So we'll be right back.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud Marines.
Good.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
You just found it. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back. You made time.
That was perfect. Okay, here we go, throw it!
Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me.
Nice.
But I heard every word.
So how was work?
It was 1,300 hours. My math class from 302 was in the trenches. Davy Roth had it the worst. Fractions were coming at him left and right. He just didn't get the damn things. 2 days ago, I tried to teach him what 1/4 of 1/2 was using different sizes of blocks. Yesterday, I tried again by dividing up pizza. Both missions failed.
Oh no.
But today, I was ready. I created a combat math game where the only way to beat the enemy is to out-fraction them. Davy conquered every last denominator. My game was so successful, the principal is deploying it to math squadrons all over the school. Anywho, how was your day?
Oh, today my boss treated the office to salad wraps.
Salad wraps.
No.
Welcome back to Northern Kentucky Votes 2018, produced as a public service by the Telecommunications Board of Northern Kentucky. We're going to talk with Hannah now, who has insights to share with us from statewide data about the candidates and also the turnout this year. This election, I think, has just been one of the most, it's the biggest midterm election in a long, long time. Normally, we have midterm elections come and go, but the vote count across the country has been huge, and I'm sure it's going to be big here also. And you've been looking into it, so tell us what you found out.
Well, and I mean, this number goes to show that there's 90 House seats in the Kentucky House up for grabs. So that could change the majority that was gained a couple years ago in 2016, which was the first time in a long time
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
Republicans had claimed the majority. I think something I read was that it's expected to possibly swing back to Democrats. But statewide voter turnout is supposed to be about 46%. Here in Kenton County, it's expected to be about 30%.
Really, which is pretty good.
Which is pretty good. It's not as strong as we've seen in 2016 general election and the 2014 midterms. In 2016, it was 57.4%. And in 2014 it was 38.8. So not as strong, but then I think in the primaries this last May it was only 10%. So
Yeah,
much,
it was.
much better than that.
Was more
Right.
than usual, also,
Right.
even in the primary. So this year just has been a huge election year, and we have been deluged. I think we'll all be glad when it's over.
I have seen more messages and more handouts and more flyers and more people knocking on my door and more people calling me on the phone. I think everyone is really engaged
I think they're
year.
really engaged, and I think it's great. But I think we're all going to breathe a sigh of relief when it's over.
Definitely.
No more commercials, no more stuff in the mail. It will be back to normal. So
I personally think that 30% number from the county clerk is a little on the low side.
I think it probably is going to be more.
I think it might be in that 38 to 40% range that you were just talking about.
Yeah, I think it probably will be too. So.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to watch tonight. We'll be able to watch that as the night goes on. But I think I think here in Kentucky, the pension thing really drew a lot of people out, and so I think
It got the teachers engaged.
Yeah.
And I think the teachers got the youth engaged. I think the fact that the youth are engaged in this election is
I think
a
so
good thing.
too. Yeah.
And I
so
think
I think it's going to be interesting. I think what happens. Well, thanks, Hannah. Some very interesting trends for sure for us to be looking at tonight. Well, since the polls are now officially closed, we'll get our results coverage started, and we'll now send you to the live results feed from the county clerk's office for our first look at the countywide numbers this evening. The Northern Kentucky Votes 2018, produced as a public service by the Telecommunications Board of Northern Kentucky. We'll go back to the clerk's roll in just a minute. We're going to take a look at Villa Hills and Covington, as we have some numbers there for you. So, Anna, how about Villa Hills?
Well, it looks like Jansen has pulled ahead by a strong margin, and these are the final numbers. So it appears that we have a winner. We do not yet, we don't have all the numbers for the county clerk, or for the council, sorry. But it appears that we do have a winner for the mayoral race, which says a lot about the development, as she was part of the Defend Villa Hills PAC, or was supported by them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the council as well with that, since 4 of those newcomers trying to get into the council were supported by the PAC as well.
Interesting. Interesting. So Jansen is the new mayor of Villa Hills.
Yeah.
And now we have Covington, some numbers from Covington there, Dan.
So we have some interim numbers from Covington 1 that shows Williams, Flesh, Smith, and Wells as the top 4. And I think we just had some 12 precincts out of 25 showing that it shows 3 of the non-incumbents actually potentially winning a seat on the Covington City Commission. That would be a shocking development.
It really would be, yeah.
As of right now, just this one precinct that actually shows that development, that while Wells and Williams are incumbents, and Flesh and Smith are would be the new candidates that would be
interesting. And that's in Covington 1, which is what, down by the river, I guess.
This is down by the river.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll keep track of that and keep watching as the night goes on and see where that goes. But that is a whole different look as to what we thought it was going to be.
The clerk's rolls showed some different numbers that showed that Wells was finishing 5th, and they would have three non-incumbents out of the top 4.
Yeah.
But obviously those are not final numbers.
Yeah. So we'll keep watching. I think at this point we're going to go back to the roll in at the clerk's office, and so we'll see what's happening there, and then we'll be back as soon as we have more to report from here. Welcome back and thank you for joining us for Northern Kentucky Votes 2018. All the races are heading for the finish line tonight, so we'll be keeping you up to date on the winners as we get those numbers in. So as we continue this evening, right now though, we're going to turn to Hannah. Hannah, you got some news on the 65th district, I understand.
I think it's safe to call the 65th House District race for Buddy Wheatley. He's a Democrat. A little surprising since Jordan Huizenga has had such a prominent role in the city of Covington on their commission. But the 65th House seat was held by a Democrat for 24 years. So not a huge shock.
No, I don't think that's a surprise really. And as I said, Arnold was terrific and did a great job. So Mr. Wheatley's got his work cut out for him to fill those shoes for sure. But anyway, so we're calling that race. Buddy Wheatley is going to be representative for the 65th House District of the general election. Now, as I understand, we're going to go to some state numbers to give you.
State numbers, okay.
Well, I got to get out of the way first. Okay, we're going to go. These are the state. Now, these are the statewide numbers. You've been watching tonight the county numbers, so this is the first chance you'll have to see how the statewide numbers are going. So in the U.S. Representative 4th District, Massey is leading with 52.1% of the vote, Hall 44.2% of the vote, and Moffett 3.7% of the vote. 61st District, Maddox is leading there with 64.1% of the vote with 75 votes, and Link is 35.9% with 42 votes. 63rd District, St. Ange is leading with 58.7% of the votes, 5,693, and Blair 41.3% with 3,998. Again, these are the statewide results now, not just the county results. 64th District, Mosier, 761 votes, 68.1% of the vote. Varney with 357 votes, 31.9% of the vote. 65th District, we just announced. The winner there is Wheatley with 5,882 votes, 59.7% of the votes. 69th District, Koenig is leading right now with 1,637 votes, 57.5%, and Owens with 1,208 votes, 42.5% of the votes so far. Now again, those are statewide results. Right now, Dan has some information for us on the mayoral race in Taylor Mill.
So Merg, we've been following the Taylor Mill race all night long, and we've got some preliminary numbers from the 2 precincts and the absentees. And with those preliminary numbers, it's looking good for the incumbent mayor, Daniel Bell, over the incumbent council woman, Sarah Frisch. It's too early to call. We still have 2 precincts out, but it's looking good for the mayor right now.
Bell, yeah. Very good. All right, good. We'll be keeping track of that and watching those as the night goes on. And we'll be, and we're going to go back to the, okay, so right now we're going to go back to, I'm getting some cues, so pardon me for that. Anyway, we're going to go back now to the roll from the clerk's office. Remember, the numbers you see from the clerk's office are just the county numbers, so that's what you're going to be seeing. So we'll go back there, and we'll be back here shortly with some more updates on some of the other races. So stay with us. Welcome back to the TBNK studio. I'm Dick Murgatroyd, your host for Northern Kentucky Votes 2018. And joining me this evening are Hannah Carver and Dan Humpert, who are helping analyze tonight's races. And Dan's got some news with Taylor Mill for the mayoral race, and we'll go to that.
It looks like we have some final numbers from the city of Taylor Mill in the mayor race. Daniel Bell, by our count, has won the city of Taylor Mill mayor race. So he beat Sarah Fritsch fairly handily by looking at those numbers.
Okay. And then you got a couple others that you're going to talk about.
So we've been following the Lakeside Park City Council race. There were 6 incumbents, Dennis Landwehr, Andrew Diskin, Matt Stegman, David Wolfer, Rebecca Stewart, and Paul Margraft running for re-election. And 2, let's call them newbies, Tyler Gastrite and Brian Waite were running to challenge those 6 incumbents. It turns out that by our numbers now that Tyler Gastrite and Brian Waite have been elected to Lakeside Park City Council, and it looks like the 2 that have been voted off are Dennis Landwehr and David Wolfer.
Okay.
So those are some relatively final numbers. We'll have to wait and see the final numbers. Same with Fort Mitchell. In Fort Mitchell City Council, they had a number of incumbents. Vicki Berger was an incumbent. Michael Steckel was an incumbent. Mary L. Burns was an incumbent. Kim Notcheisel was an incumbent, and Greg Polgeers was an incumbent. By our final numbers, it looks like those are all elected. The 2 new people running for the council that looked like they got elected is Scott McVeigh and Jerry Dethridge. And Franklin D. Hicks, Don Rosing II, and Renee Oka looked like they did not make it. So that's, again, not our not final numbers, but it looks like that's going to play out.
Okay.
Also in the Covington City Commission, we have some relatively final numbers also. It looks like Michelle Williams, Denny Bowman, Shannon Smith, and Tim Downing have been elected. Only 2 of those are incumbents, so we'll have 2 new people on Covington City Commission. Again, those are not final numbers, but it looks like that's where the way the numbers are going.
Okay, good enough. All right, I think we're going to go now to the statewide numbers again. As I said, these are statewide results because on the roll that we have from the county clerk's office, those are just the county numbers. So in the 4th district, 3 out of 120 counties reporting, so there's a way to go. But right now, Massey is leading with 38,823 votes, 59.6% of the votes. Hall with 23,902 votes, 36.7% of the vote. And Moffett, who's the independent, I believe, is 2,420 votes, 3.7% of the votes. 61st District, Maddox is looking here with 6,303 votes, 66.7% of the vote, and Link with 3,145 votes, 33.3% of the votes, and that's not final because, as we said, it's 3 out of 120 counties reporting. In the 63rd District, St. Ange with 7,050 votes, 58.6% of the vote, and Blair with 4,989 votes and 41.4% of the votes. 64th District, Mosier, 6,171 votes, 65.7% of the vote. Varney with 3,222 votes, 34.3% of the vote. 65th District, we announced that earlier. Wheatley is leading, and I believe we've determined that Wheatley is the winner in the 65th District, at least from what our numbers are here at 5,882 votes, 59.7% of the vote, and Huizinga 3,609 votes, 36.6%, and McDowell with 369 votes, 3.7% of the votes, and again, those are statewide results. 69th District, Koenig was right now leading with 2,523 votes with 53.9% of the vote, and Owens with 2,161 votes and 46.1% of the votes. So that's still a close race at this point of the evening. And now I think we're going to come back to you, Hannah, and you've got some news for us on Villa Hills.
Kind of the same trend is reflected as we saw in the mayoral race. 4 of the 4 city council candidates who were supported by the Defend Villa Hills PAC are all voted in, as well as Cahill, and only 1 incumbent remains, and that's Scott Ringo. So seeing a almost total shift of the Villa Hills City
total
Council.
turnover there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a big issue, and evidently that must have rang a bell there.
I think it's
with the voters.
safe to say this election was a referendum on the
It was
on the development
on
there.
the development, yeah, for sure. All right. Well, those are.
We
And I
have some
think.
numbers for Park Hills also.
Oh, you do? Okay, Dan,
So-
go ahead.
So in Park Hills, the city council race, we had Matt Matone, the incumbent mayor, running for city council. We had Jason Reeser as an incumbent. We had Carl Oberjohn as an incumbent. We had Steve Elkins as an incumbent, Pamela Spohr as an incumbent, and then we had challengers Monty O'Hara, Kevin Tyson, Wesley Dieters, Joe Shields, and Sarah Froelich. It appears that only 2 of the incumbents have gotten elected, Pamela Spohr and Steve Elkins. And the new members of Park Hills City Council, by our numbers at least, will be Kevin Tyson, Wesley Dieters, Joe Shields, and Sarah Froelich. So
Very
that's
good.
the numbers we have for Park Hills.
Okay, good. Well, we will be back with more, lots more, of Northern Kentucky election coverage from the TBNK studio on Northern Kentucky Votes 2018. So stay put. In the meantime, we're going to go back to the county roll and see what's happening in the clerk's office. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for Northern Kentucky Votes 2018. A lot going on tonight, which you've seen already with national, state, and local races. So let's get back to it. I'm going to go to Hannah. Hannah, you got a report on Independence Mayor.
It looks like Reinersman is pulling ahead. These are the numbers from Independence Precinct 1. And I mean, you can see very strong for Reinersman over UOA. And I think we have Precinct 9 as well. No, just kidding. We do not have Precinct 9.
Just a test.
Yes. Also in Precinct 1, these are the council seats. And it looks like Azir, Waite, Deedon, Lucas Deedon, Franzen, and Engelman and Brinker are the pull-aheads, at least in Precinct 1. So that's a 7 for 6 seats right now.
Okay, good. That's just in Independence 1, so
Right.
there's still some more to come in, but
Yes.
that gives us a little indication anyway.
Yes.
Okay, Dogal. And I think I'm going to go back over here. We've got some numbers, state numbers, I think, for some of the, and some local numbers also for you to look at. These are statewide results, however, right now. 4th District, Massey, and there's 4 out of 120 counties reporting. Now remember, Massey's not running in all 120 counties, but Massey's got 43,255, 60.1% of the vote. Hull with 26,088 votes, 36.2% of the vote, and Moffett with 2,663, 3.7% of the vote, but that's the statewide numbers. 61st District, Maddox, again, 4 out of 120 counties, but that's not, they don't cover all those counties. Maddox with 9,461, 66.9% of the vote, and Link with 4,684, 33.1% of the vote. So Maddox has got a pretty good lead there. 63rd District, St. Ange with 8,628 votes, 59.4%. Blair with 5,898 and 40.6%. Again, that's a pretty good lead for St. Ange in the 64th District. Mosier in the 64th District, 6,171 votes, 65.7%. Varney with 3,222, 34.3%. Again, Mosier has a pretty good lead there in that district. As we mentioned earlier, in the 65th District, that's pretty much a done deal. Wheatley has won that with 6,045 votes, 58.8% of the votes. Huizinga, 3,848 votes, 37.4%, and McDowell with 389 and 3.8% of the votes, but we called that earlier. In the 69th District, Koenig with 3,105 votes, 53.3% of the vote, and Owens with 2,721 votes, 46.7% of the vote. And now we're going to go to some county results. Looking at the family court in the 5th Division, that's 77 of the 106 precincts reporting. 108, I guess 106, 106, okay. The Gentry is ahead right now with 15,729 votes, 52.5% of the vote, and Schoberg is with has 14,231 votes, 47.5%. Again, all of the counties or all of the districts are not in yet, so that we don't know the finals on that. City commissioners in Covington, we talked about those earlier. Well, Bowman with 3,068 votes, 12.7% of the vote. Williams with 3,713 votes, 15.3% of the vote. Flesch with 3,713 votes, 15.3%, and Smith with 3,638 votes, 15%. So that is...
that's 77 out of 108.
That's, yeah.
So we actually have better numbers than that.
So we have better numbers than that for that. Fort Mitchell City Council, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but Berger with 1,560 votes, 11.9% of the vote. McVeigh with 1,311, 10% of the vote. Deathridge with 1,318 votes, 10% of the vote. Steckel with 1,419 votes, 10.8% of the vote. Burns with 1,375 votes, 10.5%. Nowcastle with 1,704 votes, 13.0%. And then Rosing, 592.45, he's out of the picture. Oka with 1,097, 8.3% of the vote is out. And Polgears has 1,768 votes and 13.4% of the vote. And I think we talked to that, we called about that earlier, and we pretty much called that one. Reinersman is running, in fact, I think very high right now. And actually,
those numbers should be switched.
Those numbers should be switched. Is that? Yeah, Reinersman has 4,232 votes, 71.5% of the vote. And Ulloa, did I say that right? I apologize, Mr. Ulloa. I called you Ulloa earlier, so I apologize for that. Anyway, 1,685 votes, 28.5% of the vote. So in that particular race, looks like Reinersman is pretty much ahead. Independent City Council, Asir with 3,679 votes, 14.5% of the vote. Waite with 3,563 votes, 14% of the vote. Lucas Deaton, 3,543 votes, 13.9%. Franzen with 3,925 votes, 15.4%. All of those very close. Engelman with 4,030 votes, 15.8%, and Brinker with 3,419 votes, 13.4%. And those are the winners, we think, in Independence, and the other, John Deaton did not get into that mix. Lakeside Park City Council, we talked a little bit about that earlier. Gatz Wright with 614 votes, 14.6% of the vote. Diskin with 518 votes, 12.4% of the vote. Stegman with 552 votes, 13.2% of the vote. Markgraf with 525 votes, 12.5% of the vote. Stewart with 545 votes, 13% of the vote. And Waite with 554 votes, 13.2% of the votes. And as I said earlier, we called
We
that.
called that.
that
Wolfer and
earlier
Lambert
on,
did
yeah.
not make it.
Yeah. Ludlow Mayor right now, Boone with 930 votes, 71% of the vote. Wynn with 379, thank you, 379 votes, 29%. Boone is right now in the lead. I don't know how many precincts are in on that yet. The City Council voting for 6th Navarre is 704 votes, 10.9% of the votes. Whitley is Whitley, isn't it? 740 votes, 11.5% of the vote. Wright, 877 votes, 13.6% of the vote. And Emmon, 813 votes, 12.6% of the vote. Chapman with 621 votes, 99.7% of the votes. And I think those are the top. And Grider, I'm sorry, Grider with 559 votes and 8.7% of the vote. So those are the winners there. Zembroda is unopposed, of course, in Park Hills, and in City Council for Park Hills, I think we talked about that earlier, but Shields, 765 votes, 12.5% of the vote. Froelich with 587 votes, 9.6% of the vote. Elkins with 603 votes, 9.8%. Spoor with 783 votes, 12.8%. Tyson with 717 votes, 11.7%, and Dieters with 698 votes, 11.4%. And those are your.
I think there's one more slide.
And there's one more slide.
No,
Thank you.
wasn't. No, there wasn't. Okay.
No,
so
it wasn't. So
O'Hara did not make it.
So
okay.
no. So that was the winners in Park Hills. Taylor Mill Mayor, we called that earlier. Bell with 68 votes, 73.1% of the vote, and Fritsch with 25 votes.
Obviously, those are some low
Those
numbers.
are some really strange numbers for Taylor Mill. I don't think that's all the votes that they got. These are pretty early. This must be early votes here we've got, folks.
Taylor Mill, early voting.
All of Taylor Mill. I think the city commissioners, I know there's more votes than that in there now, so we'll get past that if we can. Villa Hills Mayor, we've already announced that Jansen did win that race, 2,384 votes, 67.1% of the vote won it handily. And in the City Council, as we said earlier, pretty much the folks that were pretty much on her coattails as far as her mindset with this development thing. Boehner with 1,990 votes, 11.4%. Cahill with 1,908 votes, 10.9%. Ringo with 1,489 votes, 8.5%. Wadsworth with 2,101 votes, 12%. And Thompson with 1,867 votes and 10.7% of the vote. And Stover with 2,519 votes, 14.4% of the votes, and they are the winners in Villa Hills City Council. We talked about the constitutional amendment a little bit earlier. We haven't really talked about it tonight with Hannah, but so far that's winning with 24,784 votes, 73% of the vote as opposed to the noes. And I'll ask maybe Hannah, you want to tell us a little bit about that amendment? We haven't talked much about it, so tell us a little more about that.
Well, even if it wins, that does not mean that it's going to actually be put into law, because right now a judge has blocked the question on the ballot. It's on the ballot, but has blocked the ruling because it is unconstitutionally vague in its language. So I think the way that it is written on the ballot is, are you in favor of providing constitutional rights to the victims of crime, including the right to be treated fairly with dignity and respect, and the right to be informed and to have a voice in the judicial process? Actually, there are 10 protections, and this is all that is in that constitutional amendment. So there's a lot of controversy over the vagueness and things like that. So even if it passes
it
tonight,
may not pass. It's interesting, anytime they have amendments,
Yep.
the wording in the amendments is either so confusing that people aren't sure whether to vote yes or no, or in this case, why it's even on there because it's got so many problems. It seems simple if you read it.
right.
You know, if the average person reads that, it's pretty
They're gonna
simple.
vote yes
You
for
think,
it.
well, gee, I'd vote
I'll
yes
vote
for
for
that.
it,
I mean,
yeah.
I think that's only fair, but there's more to it than that.
Well, and I think one of the other issues that some groups have with it are that because it is a constitutional amendment, to then go back and change the language if it is confusing for some people, to go back and change the language later, to change part of it, you then have to propose another constitutional amendment, and it's not an easy fix to
No.
adjust any of the
No.
language.
So it'll probably, I guess the judge will declare it null and void until they get back with some better
I mean, right
language.
now, that judge's decision is being challenged, so we'll see how that
Now
all
that's a
goes after the
statewide
election.
amendment?
Yes.
Yeah, statewide.
And 5 other states. Kentucky is one among 6 tonight voting on it.
All right, so it's several
so-
other states are doing it
Yes.
also. Okay, let's see, Taylor Mills number, we had earlier were from our precincts, the lower numbers we just reported are the only numbers the clerk's office has yet. So that's all they have, really?
That's why they were lower.
Oh, no
We're
kidding?
gonna do Covington.
Gosh almighty. Okay,
We're gonna do Covington.
huh?
We're gonna talk about Covington now.
We're gonna talk about Covington? We can always talk about Covington. Dan,
So
go for it.
So Jason has given us the primary numbers from the Covington race, and usually the primary numbers are a good indicator that someone will do well in the general election. And in this particular primary, Bill Wells was the winner of the primary by a fairly good margin, by a couple percentage points. And he was an incumbent, so you assumed that Bill would do well in the general election. He came in 5th, and Tim Downing, who's an incumbent, came in 4th, and the last precinct that reported was South Covington, and Tim Downing did extremely well in South Covington. So those numbers separated Tim Downing from Bill Wells, and that was the race. So we ended up, Denny Bowman did well in the primary, Michelle Williams did well in the primary, but Shannon Smith did not do so well, and she obviously campaigned very hard to get elected.
So she's in?
So she's
Yeah.
in.
Well, it is interesting because the primary numbers, if we were looking at those primary numbers, we almost would have said those are the ones that are going to go in the final election, and that isn't always the case. But a lot happens between primary and the election. I mean, people work harder, they do more, something comes up in between. I think I heard somebody talk about the fact that Ohio especially had early elections, and I think that in
Early
Kentucky,
voting, yeah.
early voting, and I think Kentucky was kind of absentee voting. It wasn't
Strictly absentee, or
absentee.
you had to have a good reason why
a
you
good
could
reason
vote.
why you were voting. But Ohio and a number of states did have, but a lot of people said, well, they voted early, and so if something happened between that vote and the actual election, they're out of luck.
They can't go back and
They can't
change
go
their
back
vote.
and change their vote. So anyway, well, you're watching Northern Kentucky Votes 2018, all the results you need and only half the calories. Tim has been working hard on these, so stay tuned because it's good for you.